Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Day one of the Republican Party convention, Donald Trump made a grand entry with a bandaged ear and secured his party's nomination officially. He's also announced his vice presidential pick. We'll tell you who the man is and what he brings to the table. Also, how the Biden camp is coping with Trump's rising chances, how investors and donors are reacting. And what's the update on the investigation into the Trump shooting? We'll cover all of this and more. Meanwhile, in Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistan-sponsored terrorism is on the rise again, an attempt to neutralize India's gains over the past few years. In Bangladesh, how student protests against reservations have taken a violent turn, why China is building a secret military base in Tajikistan. What is pickleball and why is it beating the game of golf? What India should be wary about as it clears the use of the latest weight loss drugs. And they found a cave on the moon's surface. We'll tell you what this means. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Fresh protests erupt in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. President William Ruto accuses the US-based Ford Foundation of funding the anti-government demonstration. Ford Foundation rejects the accusation. Dozens of people have been killed in the protests that began a month ago. Israel continues to bomb Gaza as ally US renews criticism of the high civilian casualty. Now, China claims it is keen to facilitate reconciliation between rival Palestinian factions. Later this month, Fatah officials will be meeting their Hamas counterparts in Beijing. In India, the Lal Street extends its bull run. Sensex and Nifty hit fresh record highs. The benchmark stock indices have been on a record-breaking run since Friday. This comes ahead of the Union budget presentation next week. The International Monetary Fund maintains its 2024 global growth forecast as the world economy will grow 3.2% this year. It's the same as its April forecast. The IMF raises India's 2025 growth projection to 7% from 6.8%, but cuts the 2024 forecast for the United States and Japan. President Emmanuel Macron accepts the resignation of the French government. The Prime Minister will head the caretaker government. French politics has been in a deadlock since the inconclusive snap election earlier this month. Parties in the National Assembly are scrambling to put together a coalition government. And Gareth Southgate resigns as England's manager. The decision comes just days after England lost to Spain in the Euros final. Southgate, a former defender, had taken charge in 2016. Under him, England made it to two Euro finals, but lost both times. These are Donald Trump's supporters. They want him to fight, to relive the moment when he got up on stage almost immediately after being shot at. When he pumped his fist and shouted the word fight at least 3 times. Now, fight has become his campaign slogan. On Monday, Trump made his first public appearance after the shooting. He went to the Republican National Convention in the city of Milwaukee, in the Midwestern state of Wisconsin in America. The former president had a bandage on his ear. He wasn't scheduled to speak on day one, but he was expected to get a hero's welcome, and he did. Take a look at this. There is a wave of support behind Donald Trump now. Thousands of Republicans have gathered in Milwaukee. As many as 50,000 people are attending this event. This includes Republican leaders, party delegates from all American states, and of course, Trump supporters. Many of them had an emotional reaction when they saw Trump.
Very enthusiastic, like there's hope, The man is tough. He is tough and he'll fight for every American.
Energized. I'm up for it, baby. Too bad it's not November 5th now.
I love it. It stands for his greatness, his legacy. It just keeps growing. It keeps growing. It is unbelievable, historic time. We are part of this history.
It was an eventful day. Donald Trump himself was visibly emotional. This event, the Republican National Convention, underscores the mass support that he now has. The shooting came as a shot in the arm. From the grassroots to the top leadership, they're all rallying behind Trump now.
I definitely believe we're sailing into uncharted territories. We're doing things that typically the Republican Party wouldn't do, and I think that that's grown the base for Trump, and I think that that's what's going to tip us over for this 2024 victory.
Trump is expected to speak on Thursday, and he's completely changed his speech. We told you about this yesterday, about this change. Today we have more details. Reports say Trump wants to bring the country together with his speech. Earlier, he wanted to target US President Joe Biden, but now he wants to deliver a more unifying message. Trump has given a newspaper interview. I have a few quotes from what he said. Listen to this. The speech I was going to give on Thursday was going to be a humdinger. This is a chance to bring the whole country, even the whole world, together. The speech will be a lot different than it would have been 2 days ago. Trust Donald Trump to call his own speech impressive. But yes, the world's eyes will be on him. The speech is now the most important event of the convention. The nominations were wrapped up yesterday. Officially, Trump has clinched the Republican Party's nomination. He is their presidential candidate. His son, Eric Trump, made it official last night.
And Madam Secretary, the great state of Iowa proudly cast all of its 40 votes for President Donald J. Trump.
The state of Oklahoma proudly cast all of its 43 votes for President Donald J. Trump.
On behalf of the West Virginia delegation, I am very proud to cast all 32 votes for our former and future president, Donald J. Trump.
Cast our vote in favor of our next president, Donald J. Trump.
And on behalf of the 125 delegates in the unbelievable state of Florida, we hereby nominate every single one of them for the greatest president that's ever lived, and that's Donald J. Trump. Hereby declaring him the Republican nominee for President of the United States of America.
Trump was picked unanimously. The convention is the final step towards securing the nomination. Both the Democrats and the Republicans have separate conventions. It is where each party makes its candidate official. And this is how the process unfolds. Republicans, or Democrats as the case may be, from all over America gather at the convention. That's 50 American states and 6 union territories. Now, all of them send their representatives. These are called the delegates. They officially cast their votes and they select the candidates, the nominees for president and vice president. Now, Trump has been a clear choice for the Republican Party, so his nomination was only a formality. Yesterday, he also declared his running mate. That's Trump's candidate for the vice presidency. He's picked a man called J.D. Vance. And just like Trump, Vance faced no challengers. We'll tell you more about him in a bit. So the Republican convention is underway. It's a 4-day affair. Next month, it will be the turn of the Democrats. They will hold their convention in the month of August. Now, until a couple of weeks ago, Joe Biden was expected to be confirmed here. He was sure to be the Democratic nominee. The process would have been exactly the same as with the case of the Republicans. But now all bets are off. The Democratic Party is in disarray. There is no unanimous support for Biden anymore. Instead, there are calls for him to step aside. There are growing concerns around Biden's health and his ability to carry on for 4 more years. A growing section of the Democrats wants Joe Biden to go to be replaced by someone younger. But Biden remains adamant. He hasn't stopped campaigning. In fact, now he says that he wants to debate Donald Trump again.
Mr. Trump has said he's giving you a chance to redeem yourself, basically the idea of engaging in another debate.
We're going to have another debate.
The Democrats have suspended all campaign ads meanwhile. They've also dialed down any direct criticism of Donald Trump. They wanted to show solidarity after the shooting. But they don't seem to have a winning strategy at this point. They certainly don't have a winning candidate. Trump seems to be running away with this election. In 2020, towards the end of his presidency, Trump was virtually boycotted. More than 10 internet platforms had banned him. He faced a range of lawsuits. In the past few months, he staged a dramatic turnaround. Today, he's on the verge of the ultimate comeback. He's up against a weak contender, and the shooting has galvanized his supporters. At this moment, it seems like it's Trump's election to lose. Now, let's tell you about the other man making headlines. Donald Trump's running mate, his pick for vice president, that's J.D. Vance. If you do not follow U.S. politics, it may have come as a bit of a surprise. You may have expected a Vivek Ramaswamy or a Ron DeSantis. But among Republicans, it was apparently the obvious choice. First, let's take a look at his career. Vance hails from the U.S. state of Ohio. He has served in the U.S. Army, including in the Iraq War. He also has a law degree from Yale. After that, he joined an investment firm in Silicon Valley. But Vance's big moment came in the year 2016. That's when he published a memoir, Hillbilly Elegy. That's what it was called. This book narrates his life in rural and working class America, and it struck a chord with a lot of people. The book ended up being a bestseller. Interestingly, Vance did not support Donald Trump in the year 2016. He was a vocal critic at the time. He called Trump an American Hitler, a terrible candidate that he would never support. So what changed his mind? Well, Vance says that Trump's policies forced a rethink. Others say that it was just political opportunism. Either way, it has worked, because in 2022, Vance was elected to the U.S. Senate. And now he is Trump's pick for vice president. Take a look at his nomination at the Republican convention.
The question is on the motion that Senator J.D. Vance be nominated by acclamation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye! All those opposed signify by saying no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
Now, the obvious question is this: why Vance? Well, there are mainly 4 reasons behind Donald Trump's pick. Number 1 is age. J.D. Vance is just 39 years old. Trump is twice his age, and Joe Biden is more than twice his age. So the nomination is like a balancing act for the Republican ticket. An old president, but a young vice president. Reason number 2 is policy. Vance is almost always on the same page as Donald Trump. And when he's not, he won't push his opinion. Instead, he will change it. Just consider abortion. Earlier, Vance had a radical position on the issue of abortion. He said even victims of rape or incest should not get an abortion. But Donald Trump's position is different. A, he believes in exceptions for rape, and B, he wants U.S. states to set the law on abortions. So what did J.D. Vance do? He backed away from his previous position. Same with foreign policy. Vance has echoed Trump's position on Ukraine. First, he wanted to stop military aid to Kiev, but now he wants negotiations to end the war.
Russia would not have invaded Ukraine if Donald Trump had been president. Everybody agrees with it. I think what President Trump has promised to do is go in there, negotiate with the Russians and Ukrainians, bring this thing to a rapid close so that America can focus on the real issue, which is China.
Even Joe Biden talked about this. He called Vance a Trump clone.
What do you make of J.D. Vance? J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance. What do you think of J.D. Vance?
He's a clone of Trump on the issues. A clone of Trump on the issue. So I don't see any difference.
Which brings us to the third reason why he was picked: loyalty. Every president expects this from their vice president. But Trump's expectations are higher. Just think back to 2021. The U.S. Congress was about to certify Joe Biden's election victory. Mike Pence was presiding over that meeting. And he says that Trump asked him to reject the results, to not certify Biden's victory. Of course, Mike Pence did not listen to Trump at that point. But what if J.D. Vance was in Mike Pence's position? Well, we don't have to speculate. Vance was asked this exact question recently, and he said he would not have certified the election results. That's the sort of loyalty that Trump wants. Which brings us to the final reason, Vance's core support group. This election will be decided by America's swing states, the likes of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. These states have a lot of white working-class voters. They voted for Trump in 2016, but they did not support him in 2020. Enter J.D. Vance. He's popular in America's Midwest battleground states, so he could bring in some crucial votes. Those are the 4 obvious reasons for picking J.D. Vance. But the internet has found a 5th reason. His wife, Usha Vance. Usha is the daughter of Indian immigrants. She met Vance at the Yale Law School, and her politics is quite interesting. She was once registered as a Democratic voter. She also worked at a law firm that called itself radically progressive. So very different from her husband. The question is, how will this play out? Vance has said that his wife has considerable influence over his career. In 2022, she also helped his Senate bid. Take a look.
He's an incredible father, and he's my best friend. JD shared his family story in Hillbilly Elegy, and he wants for Ohio what Ohio gave him, a fighting chance.
Ideally, this race should be about Trump and Vance, but expect Usha Vance to feature heavily. She has a Democratic past, she is the daughter of immigrants, and she is highly qualified. These are all attributes with campaign potential. Let's see how the strategy unfolds. So it's official, Trump is the Republican Party's presidential candidate, and now we know his vice presidential pick as well. The Trump and Vance duo will take on the Democrats. For now, at least, that means Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. That is the current matchup. Trump and Vance versus Biden and Harris. But what's the mood like on the ground, especially after the assassination attempt? How has that affected public sentiment in America? How confident are the two sides in the run-up to the November election? Well, we see 2 starkly different pictures emerging. On the one side is Donald Trump. His now iconic fist in the air, adorning T-shirts, flags, and other memorabilia. His words after the attack, fight, fight, fight. They have become a rallying cry for the Republicans. He was given a hero's welcome at the Republican convention, and there wasn't a hint of hesitation when he was made the presidential candidate. Their confidence might be infectious, because the American stock market seems to have caught the bug.
This is a profound day, right? We're after an assassination attempt. This is historic. If anyone can turn an assassination attempt into a home run, it's Donald Trump, with his fist held high and the American flag. And it's the ultimate picture. And the markets are telling you the story. The markets are excited. The Trump stocks are rallying. Trump stocks are crypto stocks. They're prison stocks. They're guns.
The cryptocurrency industry has long backed Donald Trump. The belief is that Trump is pro-crypto, and he will reduce regulations on the industry. The crypto market got turbocharged yesterday after the assassination attempt. Crypto investors believe that now nothing can stop Trump from winning the election. And that was reflected in the value of Bitcoin, the world's most famous cryptocurrency. Bitcoin's value surged to a 2-week high on Monday. It rose by 8.6%. because of the belief in Trump and the belief that the assassination attempt has guaranteed his victory. Crypto investors have traditionally backed Trump. Investors like the Winklevoss twins, Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss. They're the founders of the cryptocurrency exchange Gemini, and they have already donated to Trump's campaign. They've given $250,000 each. And reports say that more money might be on the way. Now, some of these reports may be a bit spurious. The Wall Street Journal, for instance, just said that Elon Musk was planning to donate, that he was allegedly planning to give Trump's campaign $45 million every month. But Musk seems to have slammed that report. With this reply on social media, he called the report fake news. We think that's what he's trying to say anyway. But even if the story about Musk isn't true, other wealthy Americans are betting on Trump. and the markets seem to be rooting for his victory. That's the mood in the Trump camp. What about the Democrats? How are they reacting to the assassination attempt on Trump? How are they dealing with the fallout? Well, it seems like they're in damage control mode. Joe Biden definitely is.
Called your opponent an existential threat. On a call a week ago, you said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. There's some dispute about the context, but I think you appreciate that.
I didn't say
words matter.
crosshairs. I was talking about focus on. Look, the truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was, there was very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Yeah, the term is bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him. Focus on what he's doing.
Biden says he made a mistake when he said the words, "It's time to put Trump in the bullseye." Biden said this on the campaign trail, but now he says that he just wanted people to focus on Trump's policies, not literally train their guns on him. In hindsight, the choice of words was poor. So Biden has to backtrack now. It's the same story with his Democratic Party. They're also backtracking. They have pulled advertisements off the air, attack ads that reportedly cost the party $50 million. These ads have now been suspended because of the assassination attempt. The Democrats know that they cannot stay on the offensive, not after Trump was nearly killed. So they have to go back to square one and rethink their approach. So on the one hand, you have the Democrats floundering. On the other, you have the Republicans on the rise, celebrating their candidate's survival and counting down the days till the election. This brings us to the shooting itself. It was a massive security lapse, and reports suggest officers did not act fast enough. Witnesses say they warned the police. They pointed at an armed man on the roof. They kept raising the alarm, yet nothing happened. One police officer even confronted the shooter. So why then could he not stop him? And who's to blame for this failure? Is it the Secret Service or the local police? Our next report tells you.
On top of the roof, look. There he is right there.
Minutes before the shooting, it was evident something was wrong.
Yeah, he's laying down.
Yeah, look. There he is.
Witnesses saw a suspicious man. He was armed, he was pacing up and down. So they warned the local police. Soon enough, the police got pictures of the suspect. They started to look for him. It was a local town police officer who finally found him. He was on the top of a roof, crouched with an AR-style rifle. When the police climbed the roof, the shooter pointed the gun at him.
One of our officers actually assisted a lift of a second Butler Township police officer up to the roof, at which time the officer grabbed hold of the edge of the building, pulled himself up to be able to look, and according to what he's told me, shooter turned, rifle was pointed at the officer. The officer, defensive move, kind of ducked, fell, lost his grip on the building.
The man on the roof was Thomas Crooks. Just a moment later, he took a shot at Donald Trump. The bullet whizzed past Trump's right ear. He ducked. A sniper took down Crooks. But by then, it was too late. A massive security failure had already happened. People in the crowd say they saw the armed man on the roof. They tried to warn the police.
He's on top of the roof. Don't go over there. He's on the roof, buddy.
A police officer even looked towards the building, but nothing happened. Reports suggest there were 86 seconds between the warning and the first shot. That meant the police had over 1 minute to get the suspect. So what were they doing? These are some of the questions being asked of the Secret Service. After all, they were in charge of the former president's security.
At President Biden's direction, an independent review of the incident will be conducted, one that will examine the Secret Services and other law enforcement actions before, during, and after the shooting.
The U.S. Secret Service says it will fully participate in the probe. Director Kimberly Cheetle apologized for the incident. She called it unacceptable. She took responsibility for the agency's failure. But when asked if she will resign, this is what she had to say.
I appreciate the Secretary's comments, and we're going to continue to be transparent and communicate with people.
You plan to stay on, absolutely.
I do plan to stay on.
Only the probe will reveal what went wrong. But most suggest it was a failure to secure the outer perimeter. You see, during events like this, the Secret Service draws up an overall security plan. They are usually in charge of the inner perimeter where the event is taking place. The security for the outer area around it depends on the local police. Crooks fired a shot from around 450 feet away. That was part of the secondary ring, which was to be secured by the local and state officers. So some experts argue the local police weren't trained enough to do the job. Others say the Secret Service was spread too thin. But while the blame continues to shift, questions still remain. Why was the roof not secured? Why did the police not act on the tip? And was the Secret Service to be blamed for this, or the local police? These are some critical questions that need to be answered. The most important one being, as America goes to polls, can the Secret Service guarantee the safety of the contenders?
There's trouble in Jammu and Kashmir, and we haven't said that in a long time. Things have largely been peaceful after 2019, but now the terror threat is back. The latest incident was on Monday night. Security agencies got a tip-off in the Doda district. It's located in southern Jammu and Kashmir. When they reached the area, terrorists fired at them. What followed was a deadly gunfight. 4 Indian Army soldiers sustained injuries, and one of them was an officer. They were rushed to a nearby hospital, but it was too late by then. All 4 succumbed to their injuries. And what about the other side? Reports say 6 to 8 terrorists were involved. They belonged to Kashmir Tigers, a terror group linked to Lashkar-e-Mohammed, in fact. More soldiers have been called in to flush out these terrorists. But we are talking about a difficult terrain here. Doda has a very thick forest cover, so the operation will take time. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has spoken to the Army Chief. He's been briefed on the search operations, but this goes beyond just one encounter. It's part of a worrying trend now. Look at all the recent terror attacks in Jammu and Kashmir. July 8th, 5 soldiers were killed in an ambush. June 26th, 3 terrorists were killed and 1 policeman injured. June 24th, 2 soldiers were injured in an encounter. June 16th, a terrorist was killed in a gunfight. June 9th, 9 pilgrims were killed after terrorists attacked their bus. May 4th, 1 soldier was killed after terrorists attacked an Air Force convoy. Now, these are just a handful of examples, but they make one thing quite clear. Terrorists are on the move again. Their focus seems to be Jammu this time, which is strange. This region had been largely peaceful until 2021. Kashmir was the hotbed of terrorism, but Jammu was mostly stable. Now that seems to be changing. Multiple attacks have been reported in Jammu. Put together, they have claimed 70 lives, and that includes 52 security officials. Jammu has reported 11 terror attacks in the last 78 days, so clearly there is a problem. Opposition parties are blaming the government. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi says soldiers are bearing the brunt of the BJP's wrong policies. Even the police chief is under fire. Regional parties are calling the Kashmir DGP a communal fixer. They want him sacked. It's probably a response to what he said on Monday. The DGP had pointed fingers at Jammu and Kashmir's regional parties. He accused them of allowing Pakistan to infiltrate Kashmir's civil society. So that's the current situation. Terrorism is surging in Jammu. Soldiers are being targeted, and political parties are at each other's throat. All of this raises 2 important questions. 1, why have terrorists shifted focus from Kashmir to Jammu? And 2, can elections be held in these circumstances? Let's look at the first question first. There are 3 possible reasons for the resurgence. Number 1, the Indian Army has changed strategy in recent years. Terrorists in Kashmir had been beaten back, so soldiers were redeployed in Ladakh to challenge China. This troop production may have emboldened the terrorists. A second reason is the terrain. Jammu is located to the south of the Pir Panjal Mountains. It's hilly and dense. And like Doda, you have forests for cover. It's the perfect terrain to move around undetected. And finally, the third reason, Pakistan's campaign. Islamabad will not let Jammu and Kashmir succeed. Even the Indian government knows this. Sources say that Pakistan has activated terror launch pads in the region. Their aim is to keep spreading fear, to keep Jammu and Kashmir bleeding. Which brings us to the second question that we posed. Can elections still be held? Can they still go ahead? The Supreme Court of India has set a deadline for the central government. Elections must be held before September 30th. The government says it is committed to holding them. But after the recent attacks, who knows? If you hold the elections, you give terrorists a target. If you don't, you give Pakistan a moral victory. More importantly, you delay democracy in an integral part of India. So New Delhi has its work cut out. Jammu and Kashmir has made rapid gains in the last few years. Now is the time to protect those gains. Now we turn to Bangladesh, where some protests have turned deadly. Multiple casualties have been reported in Bangladesh. At least 3 people have died in Chittagong in the southeast, 1 in Rangpur in the north, and 1 person was killed in the capital, Dhaka. Meanwhile, more than 400 people have been injured from all across the country. Take a look at the situation on the ground.
We demanded rational reformation of the quota system. We did not desire anything else.
The ongoing protests are against Bangladesh's quota system. Let me explain. Every year, they recruit people for government jobs. Now, these are considered safe jobs, jobs that offer assured career growth. So these jobs are highly coveted. Every year, the government releases a list of vacancies, but all the jobs listed are not up for grabs because more than half of them are reserved. 1% of all the jobs are reserved for people with disabilities. 5% are reserved for minority communities. 10% are reserved for women. Another 10% are reserved for people from underdeveloped districts in Bangladesh. So that's 26% of the jobs reserved. But that's not all. The largest reservation is for freedom fighters, the people who fought to liberate Bangladesh from Pakistan back in 1971. 30% of all jobs, all government jobs are reserved for these people, for their children and their grandchildren. When we add this to the other reservations, the total comes to 56%, meaning 56% of the government jobs in Bangladesh are reserved. They're not open to the general public. And this is why the students are angry. This is why they have been protesting. The quota system had been scrapped in 2018 after similar protests, but now it has returned. Last month, a court reinstated the quotas, and that is what sparked the latest round of demonstrations. This is against various parts of the system, from the percentage of reserved seats to the vacancy rule. What's the vacancy rule? If a reserved job cannot be filled, if the quota candidates fail to clear the requirements or the recruitment tests, the job would be left vacant. It would not be opened up to the general public. That is the rule, even if there weren't enough reserved candidates applying. The vacancy remains, but it's not given to the general public. And remember, these jobs are much sought after. So these wasteful vacancies also riled up the people. They have been protesting for weeks now, even after another court order. The quota reinstatement was paused last week by Bangladesh's Supreme Court. It has put the reservation policy back on hold, at least for a month. But this did little to calm the protesters. In the last 2 days, the situation came to a head when Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina weighed in. She took a dig at the protesters. She used the word Razakar while talking about the protests. And this did not go down well with the protesters because Razakar is a taboo term in Bangladesh. It describes the people who collaborated with Pakistan during the 1971 War of Independence. It effectively means traitors, Razakar. So when the protesters heard this, they were enraged. They took to the streets and chanted slogans. That roughly translates to, I went to ask for my rights and I became a Razakar. The next chant was even more problematic. They're saying we are Razakars, the government has said so. Now, if you remove the second line of this chant, it looks like the protesters are just calling themselves Razakars. And remember, that is taboo in Bangladesh. In fact, it is an insult to the nation's freedom struggle. So you can imagine the reaction. There was a lot of anger from politicians who only heard the first part of the chant. What followed was a wide range of condemnations and threats. But the worst was this. From the General Secretary of Pakistan's ruling party, he said that the party's student wing would make the Razakars pay. Not the police, not the military, but the ruling party's student wing. This threat was issued yesterday, and that's when the violence escalated.
We were rallying, and suddenly the ruling party student wing attacked us in front of Bijoy Ekattor Hall first. Then we were coming towards the Vice-Chancellor's house when we were stopped there. The Chhatro League ruling party student supporters again attacked us from behind. They were hitting heads in a targeted way.
Bangladesh's quota protests have entered a violent new phase. No side seems ready to back down and the bodies have started to pile up. We hope that the situation de-escalates and cooler heads prevail. Now let's shift focus to China, which is expanding its military clout by building more military bases overseas. A new report has come out. It says China is running a military base in Tajikistan. Here is what it looks like. The facility is in a remote corner of Tajikistan near its border with Afghanistan. It is surrounded by mountains. There are roads leading up to the base. There is a helipad and perimeter walls for protection. Also a lookout tower. So this is a fully equipped military facility. Chinese and Tajik troops are believed to be stationed here. They have a growing military partnership, these two countries, China and Tajikistan. They signed a security pact in 2016. Both countries now hold regular military drills. And now it appears that they have a military base as well. By the way, this is not a new claim. A similar story had emerged in 2021 as well. This base is believed to be next to an old Soviet outpost. 3 years back, the Chinese were aggressively expanding the facility. That's what the report said. Both China and Tajikistan have denied it. They say no such base exists. But it is increasingly clear that it does. And the two sides have been secretly building this facility. They're also expanding their defense partnership, planning to take it to the next level with yet another military base. That's right. They plan to build a second facility near the Afghanistan border. So the existing facility could be transferred to China, and that too completely free of charge. Apparently, Tajikistan has made an offer. It is willing to waive rights to collect any rent. In exchange, it wants military aid from Beijing. So China could end up with 2 military bases in a friendly country. Earlier this month, Xi Jinping visited Tajikistan. The Chinese president was on a state visit. He's trying to carefully nurture this relationship because China needs this strategic turf and these bases. One reason for that is the Taliban. Since their return to power, Beijing has tried to develop close ties with the Taliban. Earlier this year, China welcomed a Taliban ambassador, the first country in the world to do so, to formally accept a Taliban envoy and extend diplomatic recognition to him. China did it. It has also sent its own ambassador to Kabul, so it is actively and formally engaging with the Taliban, but that should not be mistaken for support. It's a transactional exchange. China has clear expectations from the Taliban. It wants certain guarantees against the Uyghurs in Afghanistan. Around 2,000 to 3,000 Uyghurs live there. They're scattered across Afghanistan. They're believed to have ties with the Taliban. Now, China sees these Uyghurs as troublemakers, a community which can spark unrest in China's Xinjiang province. The Uyghur community has been persecuted by Beijing over the years. So China is now putting pressure on the Taliban to cut ties with the Uyghurs. In return, China has offered economic support to the regime in Kabul, including a possible entry into the Belt and Road Initiative. The Taliban, of course, have welcomed the idea, but not without spelling out their own expectations.
We requested China to allow us to be a part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and Belt and Road Initiative and the path that join us through Tajikistan.
So far, the Taliban have entertained China's requests, but in a limited manner. They've moved some of the Uyghurs from the China-Afghanistan border, but they haven't completely snapped ties with the community. So Beijing wants an insurance policy against the Taliban. And that's where Tajikistan could help. The military bases could help China safeguard its security interests in the region, but this should alarm other regional players like Russia. Traditionally, Central Asia has been Russia's backyard. Tajikistan is a former Soviet state. Historically, Russia has been its biggest military backer, its primary source of weapons. But recently, this supply has taken a hit. Russia has been slow in its deliveries, mainly due to the war in Ukraine. So Tajikistan is expanding its source base. It is shifting towards China. This could diminish Moscow's influence. India, too, has reasons to worry. China is stationing troops near Afghanistan. This creates new vulnerabilities for New Delhi. This presence could cut off potential trade routes and challenge India's security interests. So China is making a power play for influence in Central Asia, and others cannot afford to ignore this. Our next story is about a sport that has put golf in a pickle. We're talking about pickleball. It is a mix of badminton, tennis and table tennis. It has about 9 million takers globally. They're called picklers. And their craze has made pickleball one of the fastest growing sports globally. World-renowned athletes are investing in it now. Countries are hosting pickleball leagues. Professionals are increasingly saying goodbye to golf and playing pickleball to close deals. So what makes pickleball such a crowd pleaser? Our next report tells you.
What do you do when you want to woo clients? You take them golfing. Golf courses have long been hailed as the ideal venue to close deals. But now it seems golf needs to move over for something called pickleball. If pickleball were an awkward teenager, it would most likely get bullied, owing to its name, which has nothing to do with pickles, by the way. But it has inspired a newfound craze. Demand is soaring for pickleball courts. Pickleball fashion is raging. World-renowned athletes are investing in the sport. Country after country, including India, is hosting pickleball tournaments. And tennis star Novak Djokovic is scared of it. He says soon tennis clubs will be converted to host pickleball. The horror. In the 3 years leading up to 2022, the number of picklers grew by 159%. Yes, that's what people playing pickleball are called. Picklers. The world has about 9 million of them, and they are forecast to reach 22 million this year, making pickleball one of the fastest growing sports globally, and the fastest growing sport in the US, where pickleball is now serving more than competitive or recreational needs. It is helping professionals schmooze.
I think a lot of sports, you don't have that ability to really connect on and off the court or the field, but pickleball allows for that. And so I think when you walk away from a good day of pickleball, you walk away feeling really accomplished.
But what makes pickleball so appealing? The answer lies in how the sport is played. Pickleball is a mix of tennis, table tennis and badminton. It can be played both indoors and outdoors. Players use a plastic paddle, which is much easier to handle than tennis or badminton rackets, and a plastic ball that is slightly bigger than a tennis ball. The serves can be underhanded and low. In a nutshell, pickleball is relatively easy to learn. It is slow-paced. There is less ground to cover, which makes it easier to play than badminton, tennis or table tennis. Plus, it's cheaper and less time-consuming to play than golf. Pickleball is a moderate intensity workout, kind of like hiking, yoga, and aerobics. It reduces cholesterol levels and blood pressure. It increases cardiovascular fitness and oxygen intake. Plus, it is fun. While 50% of the people quit exercising 6 months after starting, research proves that picklers come to the court again and again.
It's a small court, so you get to meet people. The rules and the equipment have made it gender and age neutral, so you can play with all ages. Grandchildren, grandparents are playing, and the ease of entry into the sport has made it so suitable for people that have not been doing a sport for a while.
That being said, pickleball is not for everyone. When the rigid plastic paddle hits the plastic ball, there is a noise. Multiply it by hundreds of hits across the court. It can be annoying. Local residents across dozens of cities have rallied to limit the sport. They have blocked the development of new courts and compared pickleball courts to a pistol range in your backyard. So golf may not have a lot to worry about just yet. But if we are to believe the trends about pickleball, soon enough the sport is bound to put golf in a pickle.
Our next story is about weight loss drugs. They're all the rage across the globe, but in India, they were only available on the black market. Not anymore though. Weight loss drugs will soon make their debut here. Last week, India's drug regulator approved it. It gave a green light to Eli Lilly's tirzepatide. Now, Eli Lilly is an American pharmaceutical giant. For now, the approval is for type 2 diabetes and not weight loss, but it is also under review for dealing with obesity. So what exactly is tirzepatide? Who can use this drug? How much will it cost in India? And can this be misused? First, let's look at tirzepatide. It started as an anti-diabetic medication. Once administered, it mimics two hormones in the body, GIP and GLP-1. It slows down digestion. It activates insulin production. When you take it, you feel very full. Eventually, you start shedding the kilos. Studies show that those taking tirzepatide lose almost 16% of their body weight in a year. That's how it works. Now, two of Eli Lilly's drugs contain tirzepatide. They are Mounjaro and Zepbound. It's basically the same medication, but marketed for two different things. Mounjaro is for diabetes, while Zepbound is for obesity. Which brings us to the question, who can take this drug? Right now, it's been approved for diabetes in India, so any diabetes patient can get it, and this is important. India is known as the world's diabetes capital. 101 million Indians live with diabetes. That's almost 12% of our population. 15% of the population is also pre-diabetic, so this drug could be a blessing for them. Usually, a patient will need to take only one injection a week. This eliminates daily treatments or multiple pills. But on the flip side, the cost is prohibitive. A monthly package of the drug comes at a cost of $1,000. That's around 83,000 Indian rupees every month. 83,000. So one injection will cost a little over 20,000 Indian rupees. Compare that to what we have right now, drugs like metformin. It's a common drug for type 2 diabetes. One strip of 20 tablets costs around 31 rupees. So in a month, you spend around 50 rupees for the diabetes medicine. Then there's insulin. On an average, a diabetes patient spends somewhere between 2,000 to 5,000 Indian rupees on insulin every month. Still significantly cheaper. So at that price point, more than 80,000 per month, tirzepatide is not an option for most people in India. How then will it work for the Indian market? Well, it may not be a crowd favorite for diabetes, but it could work for weight loss. India has 80 million obese people. By 2034, 11% of the population will be obese. Another 225 million people are overweight, which makes this an upcoming market for anti-obesity drugs. And the demand is soaring. In 2022, India's weight management market was worth over 1,500 crores. By 2028, it's projected to be worth 2,800 crores. Thousands of Indians are already buying weight loss drugs, even though they are not legally available here. They're either smuggled from abroad or bought on the black market. Many people also end up buying counterfeit versions. So now they'll be able to get a legitimate version. But does that make it safe? Let's look at the science. Tirzepatide is recommended for chronic weight management. So it's for people who cannot lose weight any other way. It's not to be consumed casually to shed a few kilos here or there. Plus, the drug is not a miracle solution. You need to keep taking it for the effects to last. Those who stop taking it are said to regain most of their weight. And it only works when you couple it with a good diet and exercise. But that's not stopping weight loss seekers from exploring this option. And this is leading to a shortage for those who actually need it, diabetic patients. All of that must be kept in mind when these drugs are launched in India. Weight loss drugs are a money spinner, and India is a critical market for them. But it's important to tread cautiously down this road. Millions of years ago, human life on Earth began in caves. Who knows, maybe years down the line, we could say the same about humans on the moon. Because for the first time ever, scientists have discovered a cave on the moon, an underground cave. It lies about 150 meters beneath the surface, and its area is equivalent to 14 tennis courts. Now, this may be the first cave, but scientists suspect that there are hundreds more, and they can be the new home of future astronauts. Here's a report.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The year was 1969. It was the month of July when the first human landed on the moon during NASA's Apollo program.
The important achievement of Apollo was a demonstration that humanity is not forever chained to this planet, and our visions go rather further than that, and our opportunities are unlimited.
55 years later, we have taken one more step closer to that dream. Not far from where Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed for the first time ever, scientists have found a cave on the moon. They suspect there are hundreds more, and that the caves could be the new home of future astronauts. We'll tell you why. But first, let's talk about the alien cave Earthlings have discovered. It's located in what's called the Sea of Tranquility, the first site that was visited by humans. Though the area is quite big, the cave is 400 kilometers from the Apollo 11 landing site. It's visible to the naked eye from Earth because the cave's area is equivalent to 14 tennis courts. It's 45 meters wide, 80 meters long, and lies about 150 meters beneath the surface. And this is what makes it interesting. This is an underground cave. It looks like the opening of a pit. If you enter it, you will find vertical walls around you. They extend to the floor, which is a rock pile. According to predictions, this pit is connected to other tunnels inside, which may lead to more underground caves. Because this cave was made millions or billions of years ago when lava flowed on the moon, and this created tunnels through the rocks. The closest equivalent to this can be found in Spain. We're talking about the volcanic caves in Spain's Lanzarote. In fact, scientists behind the moon cave discovery visited the Spanish caves for better understanding. Coming back to the moon, you already know that countries are racing towards it. They want to establish permanent human presence there. And that's where the moon caves come in. They can be ideal to build a permanent base for astronauts. Not only for aesthetic Instagram selfies, but because they offer protection. They can protect astronauts from radiation, extreme temperatures, and space weather. Sure, the caves are deep, astronauts can safely fall inside. But going back up may be a task. The distance cannot be climbed easily, so astronauts may need jetpacks or some kind of device that gives them a lift so that they can get out. But despite the depth, this isn't a tall order, which is why scientists are optimistic. Experts say lunar caves will be a good place to build bases. Humans could potentially be living in lunar pits in 20 to 30 years. One can almost imagine a booming real estate market. And if you ask us what we think about it, we can only say this: fly me to the moon.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman takes part in the traditional halwa ceremony ahead of the union budget. Thousands of Iranians mark Ashura in Tehran, and Spain's football team celebrate their Euro win with a parade in Madrid. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1945, the United States tested the world's first atomic bomb. The explosion was the culmination of the secretive Manhattan Project, headed by Robert Oppenheimer. The next month, 2 atomic bombs were dropped in Japan, thus ending the Second World War. We are leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We will see you tomorrow.
On the New Mexico desert come first pictures of the sequel to the atom bomb's final test. From this observation tower, scientists watch the result of their years of work. Miles into the air rises the giant shape of the now historic explosion. Traveling in army tanks shielded with lead, the scientists arrive on the spot to inspect results. Cameramen and reporters put on canvas overshoes to guard against radioactive particles. Tests reveal that harmful rays do not remain, only the evidence of the terrible retribution so soon to follow.